putting together a product vision and a direction, involves deciding what you're going to invest in. So what are the features that you're going to put in, which of the different products you're going to, invest more time and resources into. And sorting through, there is a huge pipeline of ideas, of requirements, of suggestions, defects, things that people are dealing with and try to prioritize. And very often, these exist in a number of different documents. They have, a spreadsheet in which they keep the information from the customers. They have another one in which they track what competitors are doing. They have another one in which they have all the input from their field organizations. And then they need to try to put it all together. So this really, it's a requirement chaos environment. And people have a hard time putting their arms around it and being able to then combine these different sources of data and make rational decisions about it. What guides the prioritization of all of these different requirements? What happens is that you have situations where, for example, from an executive perspective, you may have a number of different product lines in your organization, right? And everybody is using their own different method for trying to make these decisions, right? And when you try to get a view that you want to share with your executive team of what is going on, it's not unusual for companies to take a couple of weeks just to gather the information from all the different product lines, the different product managers, the product owners, and then collate it in a way that where it makes sense, where it's all using the same terminology, and you get a consolidated view. So this is a huge delay, because if you're trying to make decisions fast, you cannot afford this type of delay. From a product manager's perspective, what you're dealing with is the fact that you do your magic, quote unquote, to make the right decisions, and then something changes, right? A competitor comes up with a new feature. A customer has a critical problem and needs to be solved. The company changes its objectives and priorities, and so you have to adjust all of your prioritization to the new criteria. It's a nightmare today to be able to make this. So the result is that you have a company that goes with the product, brings to market products that they shouldn't, because they are no longer aligned with the objectives of the company, or they have the wrong features because they don't include the feedback from the customers, because somebody was just responding to the latest crisis instead of really looking objectively at what the real priorities were. We've seen different approaches that companies take to managing this requirement chaos, right? And some fit certain situations and some fit others. So, one approach, well, of course, traditionally a lot of people just use spreadsheets, and they have what they call spreadsheet hell, because everybody has a different spreadsheet. There are literally hundreds of spreadsheets in organizations. When I think about a company that has grown through acquisitions, for example, they may have 10, 20, 30 different product lines, and they're all using different methods. And you have huge amount of redundancy between these different product lines, and you don't take advantage. From a customer, you could combine capabilities from these different product lines into a much more powerful offering. But everybody's working in silo. They're not sharing data. They don't have these different views, shared across. And so there is a lot of wasted resources and wasted opportunities, because you could be much more powerfully positioned in the market. So there is one approach is the spreadsheets, and some point tools that try to make spreadsheets a little bit more shared across organizations. But again, when you're talking about one product line, two product lines, maybe it might work. When you go beyond that, it's impossible. It just doesn't scale. Then you have companies that are very in regulated markets. So there is a lot of compliance requirements that they have, and so they take an approach that is more document-based. You have very clear documentation on everything that you're doing, and you have traceability across all of these documents to be able to meet those compliances. Now that satisfies that particular requirement of compliance, but from a standpoint of speed to market and agility, it doesn't support that type of that type of need. Other environments, other companies take a more developer-focused approach. So they really focus more on, they're more technology-driven, they're more driven by the development organization, and they tend to make decisions more from a technology perspective. So they really look at hey, here is our backlog. here's the priorities that we're working on, and it's just technology driven, which may be fine if you are in a stage of a evolution of a company where being technology driven is appropriate. But if you're really trying to factor in market competitive issues, the voice of the customer, then that is missing all of those voices, all of that information. Another approach that we see is an approach that is project oriented. And so there you're looking at, for example, if you have an organization that is a service organization where optimizing resources is very critical. In that case, focusing on the projects, on the critical path, on the timeline, on the schedule, and the optimization of the resources can be appropriate. But if the focus also has to be based on what are the capabilities that we need to deliver in order to produce value for the company, then you need more than just a project-based approach. So we're finding that some best-in-class companies that need to combine some of these different requirements, they need to be responsive to the market, they have pressure to get something to market fast, and competitive pressures as well, take more of an approach that is based on rapid modeling of your investment portfolio and base that on a very tight link to the capabilities, to the requirements that they need to bring to market. So it's the notion of being able to have an intelligent backlog of the priorities that is based on the company's objectives, the competitive pressures, the market objectives that you have in the organization, and balancing, breaking down the silo between all of these different types of input and prioritization criteria.